Hey, this is Pamela Riemenschneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg Johnson, our Director of Media Development. You did a video earlier this week with Robert Gunther of United Fresh. Kind of felt like it was 6 minutes on why Pamela's wrong about the food box program.
Oh, you had to take it personally, huh?
A little bit.
Well, last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we reported that the food box program was going to be canceled, which we all expected, and then USDA said they're going to come up with a new produce only box, which the produce industry had been recommending. So this was really good news. And so last week, when I saw a note from United Fresh that was very strongly worded, talking about the disappointment they had in the Biden administration and USDA for ending these programs, I thought, I need to get more info on this. So I talked with Robert Gunther, and basically his fear is that there's no funding for the produce box. So they canceled the Farmers to Family food box program because it was associated with Trump. And then they said they're going to replace it with this one thing that's not funded. So basically they're not replacing it with anything. They're doing what Democrats stereotypically do about hunger issues, which is raise funding for recipients through programs like SNAP and whatnot. But the problem with that is it doesn't get to the people who don't qualify for the programs, unlike the food boxes, which are given up to anyone who's in line, kind of an honor system of, are you hungry? Come get a box of healthy food. And it also doesn't get funds back to farmers nearly as quickly through SNAP type programs as it does through a food box, which is directly compensated by the federal government. So it was, here's what's going on behind the scenes, and it's bad.
Yeah, I watched it and it reminded me of the time that I used to work for the government back in the day. And it explains everything that is wrong with government programs, in that if you have the money, you need to spend the money or you don't get it back. And that's a common criticism of government programs. So it seems like these TFAP funds, which are available, the coronavirus assistance stuff is there and it's not getting spent on the food box programs, but it hasn't been the magical like strings haven't been pulled to make it into a produce only box. So somebody needs to go in there and I don't know, unscramble something to make it work.
Well, I guess the question is, how much do we believe USDA wants the produce box to work? Because if they really wanted it to work, they would allocate money to it and reimburse it and make it fairly easy and straightforward, which is what the Food Farmers to Families food box ended up becoming. Robert said this new produce box has to be funded all through TFAP funds, which is all allocated to states. So states have to set it aside themselves. It's not USDA. And then he said, for example, they got contacted by a food pantry type place that is located actually in my area in Kansas City. And they said their research shows that the states of Missouri and Kansas both have exhausted all those funds through TFAP. So if that's the way it's going to work, people in Kansas and Missouri have no access to the produce only box program.
And then there's states like mine here in Texas, where any of these massive pools of funds that are supposed to be allocated by the states, sometimes the government holds them hostage and makes it very complicated for, like, if, for example, the USDA expanded free lunches throughout the country very early on in the school year and said, okay, we're going to do this until December. My state made each school district apply to the State Department of Agriculture through a very complicated and, unpleasant process. My friend is a school food service director, and she said it was super complicated. Meanwhile, you read all these stories that said, lunches are free for everyone, but you're not getting them because somehow not every I is dotted and T is crossed the right way. By the way, the USDA did expand that program through the next school year, actually, all the way through to 2022, to have free school lunches for everyone. So it's expanding it to a state process. I agree with you, is complicated and political, and the money's going to get held up and held hostage. So until we actually see a produce box get the show me the money treatment, then we're going to have to keep asking questions.
Yeah, the way to discourage a program is to make it excessively complicated.
Yeah.
And the way to encourage it is to make it excessively simple. Well, one bit of bad news we got this week was a longtime produce industry leader, Don Goodwin, passed. He had been battling cancer for a few years and had overcome it for a while, and then took a turn for the worst. And you and I both have had experience working with him in the past. He's got a quite an amazing and influential history in the produce industry.
Yeah, some people may not realize, because for our recent experience with him has been with his consulting firm, Golden Sun Insights, and then Verdant Partners, which Golden Sun Insights passed along to Jason Fuller and Randy Riley, formerly of Kroger, recently. And a lot of people don't realize that he started the produce program at Target, of all places. And that kind of reminds me of when I used to be in charge of choosing the retailer of the year. And Target was a retailer of the year. And then Don always had the most thoughtful and detailed and passionate nominations for those, and people that I ended up choosing, like Joe Watson and Greg Corrigan. And so he's had a tremendous influence on the industry. And he will be missed. Just watching social media over the last couple of days of all of the people coming out with their Don Goodwin stories has just really been heartwarming, and the industry will definitely miss him.
Yeah, I got to work pretty closely with Don Goodwin when our former employer, when we started up the Midwest Produce Expo about a decade ago. And it was a brand new event. And one of the reasons we started it is there was nothing in the Midwest. And he's a big Midwest produce industry icon. And so we went to him and worked with him on education program and set up and what attendees and exhibitors would want. And it ended up being in Chicago, downtown Chicago. And it really came off great. And I hadn't really known him that well before then, but working with him in person, he knew so much about so many things in the produce industry. So it's great to see everyone share their stories online and kind of be able to come together as a community in that way.
Yeah, and I had even heard from him recently. He always sent messages, kind of just indirectly through LinkedIn. You get a message or an email of just something that maybe you hadn't thought of. You're working on a project and he notices that you're working on it, and he'll just out of the blue say, "Hey, did you know?" And it would be like just send you down a whole other insightful path. And we're definitely going to miss this insight and influence, and just an all-around great guy. Well, that's it for the Produce Reporter Week in Review. And if you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up.